Thomas and James grew up on the same street, went to the same high school. Both got to their mid-30s with around $40,000 saved and the same question in their heads. What do I do with this? Thomas bought a rental property. James opened a brokerage account. 10 years later, Thomas has one property, some equity, and a lot of stories about tenants. James has a portfolio that he has rebuilt from scratch twice. Both of them are fine. Neither of them is where they thought they'd be, and neither of them can fully explain why. The obvious answer is returns. You want to know which one made more money. That's the question everyone asks first, and it's a fair question. Real estate has historically returned somewhere between 8 and 12% annually when you factor in appreciation and rental income. The stock market has averaged around 10% annually over the long term. On paper, they're close enough that the difference isn't the point. The point is what happens between the day you put the money in and the day you actually get to keep the gains. Because that's where Thomas and James stopped being the same person. Let me draw the difference. It's not the asset. The asset is almost beside the point. What actually determines whether real estate or stocks works for you is not the return on paper. It's what your nervous system does when the investment gets uncomfortable. And both of these investments get uncomfortable, just in completely different ways. Real estate gets uncomfortable slowly and loudly. A tenant stops paying rent. The roof needs replacing. The furnace goes out in January. The property sits vacant for 3 months and the mortgage still comes out on the 1st. These are specific, concrete, unavoidable problems that require your direct attention and often your direct money. You cannot ignore them. They call you. Sometimes they call you at 11 p.m. on a Friday. Thomas is built for this, not because he's tougher or more patient in general, because the specific texture of real estate problems, concrete, solvable, physical, matches something in the way he thinks. He is good at dealing with things he can see and touch. A broken furnace is a problem he knows how to hold. He fixes it, he moves on. The discomfort has a beginning and an end. What Thomas cannot handle is the other kind of discomfort. He opened a brokerage account once, briefly, before he bought the property. He put $8,000 in. Within 6 weeks, the market dropped 14% and he sold everything. He didn't sell because he needed the money. He sold because watching a number go down on a screen, with no problem to solve, no action to take, no furnace to call someone about, felt unbearable to him in a way he couldn't explain. There was nothing to do, and doing nothing while a number fell was something he was not built for. So he bought a house instead, and that was the right decision. Not because real estate is better, because Thomas is built for real estate. James is a different story. James looked at the idea of owning a rental property and felt a specific kind of dread that had nothing to do with the money. The idea of being responsible for a physical thing, a building, a tenant, a relationship with a plumber, made him tired before it even started. He didn't want to own something that could call him on a Friday night. He didn't want problems that required his physical presence or his direct negotiation. He wanted his investment to exist without needing him. Stocks gave him that. He put the $40,000 in, set up automatic contributions, and did something that most people cannot do. He left it alone. Not perfectly. There were 2 moments in 10 years when he came very close to selling everything. The first was a market drop of 28% over 4 months. The second was a period of flat returns that lasted almost 2 years and felt, emotionally, like losing even though nothing had been lost. Both times he stayed. Not because he was fearless, because the specific discomfort of watching a number on a screen move against him was something he could sit with in a way that a broken furnace and an angry tenant could not. The discomfort of stocks is invisible and impersonal. That's exactly what made it tolerable for James. He never had to talk to anyone. He never had to fix anything. He just had to stay. And staying, for James, was possible in a way it would never have been for Thomas. Here's what I want you to see when you look at both of them together. The math says they're similar investments. The behavior says they're completely different experiences. And the experience is what determines whether you actually get the return or whether you exit before the compounding has time to do anything. Thomas would have sold the stocks. He did sell the stocks. 14% down, and he was out. James would have sold the property, not because of one bad tenant, because of the accumulated weight of being responsible for something physical, something that needed him, something he couldn't just leave alone when it got hard. The question was never which investment returns more on paper. The question was always, which discomfort can you actually live with long enough for the investment to work? And that question has nothing to do with math. Think about yourself for a second. And I mean, really think. Not which one sounds smarter, or which one your coworker is doing, or which one you read about last week. When your account drops 20% and there is nothing you can do except watch it and wait, can you actually do that? For months, maybe longer, without selling. Or when something breaks, when a tenant is late, when the property needs money you didn't plan to spend, can you handle that? Not once, repeatedly, over years, without burning out on the whole thing. One of those two scenarios is harder for you than the other. You already know which one. Drop it in the comments. Are you a Thomas or a James? I'm genuinely asking because I think most people have a gut answer to this question that they've never said out loud. Here's the part that the math really doesn't show you. The best investment is not the one with the highest historical return. The best investment is the one you will actually stay in long enough for the return to matter. A 10% annual return that you exit at year 3 because the discomfort became unbearable is worth less than a 7% return you stay in for 20 years because the experience fits who you are. Compounding requires time. Time requires staying. Staying requires that the specific texture of the discomfort be something your nervous system can actually tolerate. And your nervous system was not built in a finance class. It was built over decades of experience, temperament, and the particular way you relate to uncertainty and control. Thomas needs to be able to do something when things go wrong. Real estate gives him that. James needs to be able to step back and leave it alone. Stocks give him that. Neither of them chose wrong. Both of them eventually found the investment that matched not their financial goals, but their behavioral reality. And that match, not the asset class, not the return, is what made it possible to stay. So before you decide which one is right for you, sit with this question first. Not which one returns more, not which one your brother-in-law is doing, not which one sounds more sophisticated at a dinner party. Which kind of hard can you actually live with? Because both of them are hard, in completely different ways. And the one that's right for you is the one whose hard you can sit with long enough to let time do its work. If you've been going back and forth on this, real estate or stocks, stocks or real estate, tell me where you're stuck in the comments. Tell me what the hard part is for you specifically. That's usually the answer hiding in plain sight. Both drawings are on the table now. Thomas on one side, James on the other. Same starting point, same 10 years. Two completely different experiences of the same question. The math was never going to tell you which one was yours. Now, you have something that will.